The Zephyrian fleet commander Vextar stared at the blue marble spinning lazily in the void. Earth looked so peaceful from this distance, white clouds swirling over green continents, completely unaware that today would be its last. Primitive. World, Class 7 civilization, his tactical officer reported. Nuclear weapons, crude space travel. Standard pacification should take 6 rotations. Vextar nodded. In his 3 centuries of conquest, he'd subdued 47 worlds. Earth would be 48. The Zephyrian Empire had perfected the art of planetary subjugation. Strike fast, break their spirit, harvest their resources. Simple. Deploy the demonstration, he ordered. 3 massive warships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their shadow falling across New York City. Millions of humans looked up in terror as the ships powered their weapons. The first blast vaporized the Statue of Liberty. The second turned the Brooklyn Bridge into molten slag. Then something impossible happened. Instead of panic, instead of surrender broadcasts, every communication channel on Earth erupted with the same message. You picked the wrong species. Vextar frowned. This wasn't in the protocol. Primitive worlds always surrendered after the demonstration. Always. On his main screen, he watched human military forces mobilizing with shocking speed. Their crude aircraft launched in perfect formations. Their primitive missiles streaked toward his ships with surprising accuracy. Most disturbing of all, their communication networks were broadcasting not pleas for mercy, but tactical coordination. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, voice tight with confusion. "They're not running. They're attacking us." A human fighter jet, impossibly small compared to the Zephyrian warships, screamed past the bridge viewport. Seconds later, explosions rocked the ship as the pilot somehow found a weak point in their shields. "How did they—" Vextar began, but was cut off as another wave of human aircraft swarmed his fleet like angry insects. Then the radio crackled with a transmission from Earth's surface. A human voice, calm and cold. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, of the Terran Defense Force. You have 10 minutes to leave our system, or we show you what humans do to uninvited guests." Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Tell this admiral that the Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with prey." The response came back immediately. "Then you clearly don't understand what prey means." As if summoned by those words, every satellite in Earth's orbit suddenly shifted position. What Vextar had dismissed as primitive communication devices revealed themselves as something else entirely. Weapons platforms. Dozens of them, all now targeting his fleet. The first salvo hit his flagship like the fist of an angry god. The bridge lights flickered as his supposedly impenetrable shield strained against weapons that shouldn't exist on a Class 7 world. "Commander," his tactical officer screamed. "Their technology readings were wrong. This isn't a primitive civilization." But that was impossible. Their scouts had confirmed it. Earth was backward, divided, weak. Yet here they were, fighting with coordination that would make veteran Zephyrian battalions proud, using weapons that punched through military-grade shields, like they were made of paper. Another human transmission crackled through. "You wanted to see how we handle uninvited guests? Lesson 1. We don't play nice." Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, watching as tactical displays showed impossible victories. 3 hours ago, humanity had been minutes from extinction. Now, somehow, they were driving back an alien invasion force. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Morrison called out, his voice shaking. "I'm getting reports from around the globe. Every major military installation is different. Equipment we never built, weapons we never developed, all online and operational." Sarah stared at the displays. Orbital defense platforms that didn't exist yesterday were carving through alien ships. Underground bases she'd never heard of were launching fighter craft with technology decades ahead of anything human. "How is this possible?" she whispered. The answer came from an unexpected source. Every screen in the facility suddenly displayed the same image, a rotating view of Earth from space, but not as they knew it. This Earth pulsed with soft light, continents traced with glowing veins of energy. Then it spoke. The voice filled every speaker on the planet simultaneously, calm and ancient. "My children, I have watched you grow. I have watched you struggle. I have watched you dream of the stars while destroying each other over scraps of land and resources. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. Around her, hardened military officers stood frozen, staring at screens showing their planet as a living entity. For millennia, I have remained silent while you learned what it means to be human. Your wars taught you strategy. Your conflicts taught you unity in the face of greater threats. Your dreams of exploration taught you to look beyond your small world. On the main screen, the battle continued to rage. But now Sarah could see patterns in the defense. Every human weapon, every tactical decision, every coordinated strike was being guided by something vast and patient. Today, an external threat has come to claim what is mine. They see you as primitive, as weak, as prey to be harvested. They do not understand that you are not just inhabitants of this world. You are this world. Every human thought, every dream, every act of courage flows through me. Vextar's voice cut through the transmission, broadcast on all frequencies. Whatever trick this is, it ends now. You face the might of the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds. Earth's response came like thunder. And I have been preparing for this moment for 4 billion years. Suddenly, Sarah understood. Every technological breakthrough in human history, every scientific discovery, every moment of inspiration, it had all been guided, not controlled, but gently nudged. Earth itself had been humanity's teacher, preparing them for this moment. The weapons you now wield were always within your reach, Earth continued. The unity you now display was always your potential. The courage you now show was always your nature. I simply encouraged the right connections at the right moments. On the tactical display, more impossible things happened. Every nuclear weapon on Earth transformed, their destructive potential redirected into engines of pure energy. Ocean water began, crystallizing into materials harder than diamond. The planet's magnetic field itself became a weapon, reaching out to crush alien ships in invisible fists. You call us primitive, Sarah found herself speaking, though she wasn't sure if the words were hers or Earth's. You call us weak. You call us prey. Let me correct your data. Commander Vextar watched in growing horror as his fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian military, was systematically destroyed by a world he'd classified as helpless. Status report, he demanded. 50% casualties and climbing, his tactical officer reported. Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the entire planet is fighting us, because it was. And humanity was just getting started. Commander Vextar had retreated to the edge of Earth's solar system, what remained of his once mighty fleet limping through space. Of his original 200 ships, barely 30 survived, but reinforcements were coming, the full might of the Zephyrian Second Armada, 5,000 vessels strong. This time we do not underestimate them, he growled into his communicator. Admiral Krell, you are to treat this system as a Class 1 threat. Full planetary bombardment protocols. The response crackled back through space. Understood, Commander. These primitives got lucky once. They will not get lucky twice. But on Earth, luck had nothing to do with what was happening. In the Australian outback, massive structures emerged from sand that had hidden them for millions of years. Across the Pacific, islands that appeared on no map revealed themselves to be weapons platforms, their surfaces shifting and reconfiguring. In the deepest ocean trenches, things that had slept since the planet's formation began to wake. Admiral Chen stood in a facility that shouldn't exist, watching displays that tracked 5,000 incoming alien ships. 3 days ago, she would have seen certain extinction. Now, she saw opportunity. How many humans are now linked to the network? She asked. 7 billion and counting, her aide reported. Every person on Earth can feel it. The connection. Scientists are having breakthrough insights every minute. Engineers are building things they couldn't have imagined last week. Even children are drawing pictures of technologies we're already starting to construct. Sarah nodded. She could feel it too. The vast intelligence of the planet itself, patient and protective, flowing through every human mind. Not controlling them, but connecting them. Every person's unique talents amplified and shared with everyone else. And the other planets? Her aide's expression grew grim. Mars has gone silent. The colonists there? We lost contact 12 hours ago. Sarah's jaw tightened. Earth had been protecting more than just the homeworld. Human colonies on Mars, the Moon, Europa, all had been cut off when the planet focused its defenses. They were on their own, or so the aliens thought. The first sign that Admiral Krell had made a terrible mistake came when his sensors detected ships rising from Mars's surface. Not the crude human colony vessels he expected, but sleek craft that shouldn't exist. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, voice trembling. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the fourth planet. The human colony there. It's not just a mining operation." On the main display, Mars began to change. The red dust that had covered its surface for eons swirled away, revealing gleaming metal structures. The planet's two moons, Phobos and Deimos, cracked open like eggs, revealing the weapons platforms. "Hidden within, how is this possible?" Admiral Krell demanded. "Our intelligence showed a small research facility." The answer came as a transmission from Mars itself, spoken in perfect Zephyrian by a human voice. "Your intelligence was correct 20 years ago. But you see, we've been busy." Colonel Marcus Webb, commander of the Mars Defense Grid, smiled as he spoke. Around him, the control center hummed with activity as recently activated systems came online. The dusty research outpost had been a cover. Beneath Mars's surface lay the most advanced military installation humanity had ever built. "Earth told us you were coming," Webb continued. "Told us 3 years ago, in fact. Funny thing about humans, when we know we're going to be attacked, we prepare. And when we prepare for war, the first salvo from Mars defense platforms tore through the alien vanguard like tissue paper. We get very creative." Admiral Krell watched in disbelief as his seemingly unstoppable armada began taking casualties before they'd even entered the inner system. This wasn't possible. Intelligence had shown these humans as a young species, barely capable of interplanetary travel. But as more ships rose from Mars, as hidden weapons revealed themselves on every rocky body in the system, as the very asteroids began moving with obvious purpose, one terrible truth became clear. Humanity hadn't just been defending Earth. They'd been preparing the entire solar system, and now they were coming for him. The Zephyrian Second Armada, pride of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy, ran for their lives through the outer solar system. Behind them, humanity's ships gave pursuit with methodical precision. Admiral Krell's command ship shuddered as another human weapon found its mark. These weren't the desperate defensive measures he'd expected. This was a coordinated hunt by predators who knew exactly what they were doing. "Status report," he barked. 67% casualties, sir," his tactical officer replied, mandibles clicking with fear. "The humans. They're not just following us. They're hurting us." Krell studied the tactical display and felt his blood run cold. The officer was right. Every time his fleet tried to change course, human ships appeared from seemingly empty space to drive them back on course. They weren't just being chased, they were being guided somewhere specific. "Where are they taking us?" he whispered. The answer came from the human admiral who had haunted his communications for the past 6 hours. Sarah Chen's voice, calm and conversational. "Admiral Krell, you're heading toward Jupiter. Beautiful planet, Jupiter. Biggest thing in our solar system. Well, second biggest now." On his main screen, Krell watched in horror as Jupiter itself began to change. The gas giant's famous Great Red Spot, a storm larger than Earth itself, suddenly brightened, its swirling gases taking on new patterns. As his fleet drew closer, sensors began picking up impossible readings. "Sir," his science officer called out, voice tight with disbelief. "Jupiter's magnetic field it's being manipulated. The entire planet is becoming some kind of weapon." Admiral Chen's voice continued, almost conversational. "You see, Admiral, when Earth decided to prepare for your arrival, she didn't just upgrade our weapons. She upgraded our entire solar system. Every planet, every moon, every chunk of space, rock became part of the defense grid." The proof came as they watched Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, literally unfold like a mechanical flower. The ice that had covered it for millennia cracked and fell away, revealing a structure that dwarfed any ship in Krell's fleet. a weapons platform built into the moon itself. But Jupiter, Chen continued. Jupiter was special. Jupiter became our ace in the hole. As if responding to her words, the gas giant's atmosphere began to glow with internal fire. The planet that had protected Earth from asteroids for billions of years revealed its new purpose. It had become a star, not burning like the sun, but controlled, focused, weaponized. You wanted to see what happens when humanity stops playing. Nice! Chen's voice carried a note of cold satisfaction. Meet Project New Dawn. Jupiter's own mass converted to pure energy and focused through gravitational lensing. We can light up entire star systems with this thing. Admiral Krell's crew stared at their screens in terror as the weaponized planet began to power up. Energy readings climbed beyond their sensors' ability to measure. The very space around them began to warp as gravitational forces built to impossible levels. This is impossible, Krell breathed. Your species achieved spaceflight barely a century ago. You're right, Chen replied. A century ago, we could barely get off our own planet. But you see, Admiral, that's the thing about humans. We're really good at learning from our mistakes, and our biggest mistake was assuming we were alone in the universe. The revelation hit Krell like a physical blow. You knew we were coming. Earth's been watching the galaxy for a long time, Admiral. Watching empires rise and fall. Watching species like yours spread across the stars, conquering and consuming. She's been preparing for this day since the first human looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. Around Krell's flagship, the surviving ships of his armada began to break formation, desperate to escape what Jupiter was becoming. But there was nowhere to run. Human ships had surrounded them completely, patient as predators watching trapped prey. So here's what's going to happen, Chen continued. You're going to send a message back to your empire. You're going to tell them exactly what you found here, and you're going to make sure they understand one very important fact. Jupiter's weapon finished charging, energy levels that could crack planets held in perfect suspension. Humanity isn't prey. We never were. We're the thing that hunts predators. Emperor Valdris of the Zephyrian Empire sat upon his crystal throne, watching the holographic transmission that had just arrived from the failed Earth expedition. What he saw made his four hearts skip in unison. Admiral Krell's image flickered, his once proud bearing broken. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed signs of battle damage, sparks cascading from damaged systems. Your Imperial Majesty, Krell began, his voice hollow. I regret to inform you that the Earth expedition has encountered unexpected resistance. Unexpected resistance. In 3,000 years of empire, no world had ever offered more than token resistance to Zephyrian might. Valdris leaned forward, his jeweled claws clicking against the throne's armrests. Explain. The humans, they were not what our intelligence indicated. The planet itself fought us, Majesty. Not just the inhabitants, the actual world. It spoke to us. It commanded weapons we cannot comprehend. Krell's image paused, and for a moment, Valdris saw something he had never seen in a Zephyrian. Military commander's eyes, terror. It turned one of their planets into a star, Your Majesty. A controlled star. They used it as a weapon. The throne room fell silent except for the soft hum of the palace's power systems. Valdris's advisors exchanged glances. Surely this was combat madness speaking. Planets didn't become weapons. Worlds didn't speak. Show me, Valdris commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying tactical recordings from the battle. At first, it seemed like any other planetary conquest. Ships descending, weapons firing, the usual pattern of subjugation. Then, everything changed. Valdris watched in growing disbelief as human weapons carved through Zephyrian shields like they were made of light. He saw their crude fighters somehow outmaneuvering ships with centuries of technological advantage. He witnessed orbital platforms that appeared from nowhere, as if the planet itself was manufacturing them in real time. But it was the final image that made his blood run cold. Jupiter, transformed, its entire mass converted into a weapon of unimaginable power, held in perfect control by beings his empire had classified as primitives. How many ships did you lose? Valdris asked, though he dreaded the answer. Of the original expedition, 96% casualties. Of the Second Armada, Krell's voice cracked. 88%, Your Majesty. They let me go. Let me and a handful of others escape so we could bring you this message. What message? Valdris demanded. Krell's image was replaced by something else. A view of Earth from space, but not as it appeared in any intelligence report. This Earth pulsed with life, connected by streams of energy to every other body in its system. It was beautiful and terrible, ancient and impossibly advanced. Then, it spoke, and Valdris heard the voice that had driven his finest military commanders to despair. Emperor Valdris of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Earth. I am the mother of humanity, and I have watched my children grow from creatures who barely understood fire to beings who can reshape reality itself. You see them as prey because you do not understand what they truly are. The image shifted, showing human colonies on distant worlds, not the primitive outposts Zephyrian intelligence had reported, but thriving civilizations with technology that defied classification. For the past century, since my children first looked to the stars with wonder, I have been preparing them for this moment. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every leap of imagination has been building toward the day when someone like you would come calling. Valdris felt something he hadn't experienced in over a millennium of rule: fear. You came to harvest a world of primitives. Instead, you found a species that has been preparing for galactic war since before your empire existed. My children are not the prey in this galaxy, Emperor. They are the apex predator you never saw coming. The transmission ended with a simple statement that echoed through the throne room like a funeral bell. Stay away from human space. This is your only warning. Emperor Valdris sat in silence for long minutes, processing what he had seen. Finally, he turned to his military advisors. Options? He asked. Grand Admiral Thexel, veteran of 100 campaigns, spoke carefully. Your Majesty, if even half of what we just witnessed is accurate, humanity represents a threat unlike anything in our recorded history. Recommendation: avoid human space entirely until we better understand what we're dealing with. But Chancellor Mordak, architect of the Empire's expansion policies, disagreed. Your Majesty, we cannot show weakness. If word spreads that a single world drove back our forces, every conquered species will see it as a sign that the Empire can be defeated. We must respond with overwhelming force. Valdris considered both options, his mind calculating the political and military implications. Finally, he made his decision, one that would determine the fate of two civilizations. Summon the War Council. If humanity wants to show us what apex predators look like, then we shall show them what 3,000 years of conquest has taught us. The die was cast. The Zephyrian Empire would not back down, and in a distant solar system, Earth felt their decision ripple through space and time, and began the final phase of her preparations. 6 months after the first Zephyrian ships had appeared over Earth, the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of human space. Emperor Valdris himself commanded the Grand Armada. 10,000 ships, each one a masterwork of warfare technology, crewed by the finest soldiers in the Empire. This time, there will be no retreat, no mercy, Valdris announced to his fleet. Commanders, we will show the galaxy what happens when primitives dare to challenge the Eternal Empire. But as his armada advanced toward Earth's solar system, they found something waiting for them that defied all possibility. Humanity had not been idle. Where once there had been empty space between star systems, massive structures now floated in the void. Space stations the size of moons, their purposes unclear, but their intent obvious. Asteroid fields had been converted into defensive networks. The very fabric of space itself seemed different here, charged with energies that made Zephyrian. Sensors scream warnings, sir, Admiral Thexel reported, his voice tight with concern. I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies throughout this entire region of space. It's as if they've been terraforming the vacuum itself. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in a command center that spanned continents, linked through quantum entanglement. To every human world, every orbital platform, every converted asteroid. Around her, displays showed the approaching Zephyrian force and the trap that had been 6 months in the making. All stations report ready. Lieutenant Morrison announced. Project Void Web is fully operational, Chen nodded. Void Web, humanity's answer to the question of how to fight an empire that controlled half the galaxy. If they couldn't match the Zephyrians ship for ship, they would change the very nature of space warfare. Signal from the flagship, her communications. Officer reported. Emperor Valdris wants to speak. Put him through. The main screen filled with the image of the Zephyrian Emperor, his scaled features radiating confidence and barely controlled rage. I am Emperor Valdris, master of 3,000 worlds, conqueror of 47 species. You humiliated my forces, destroyed my ships, and dared to threaten my empire. Today, that ends. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Chen studied the alien ruler for a moment, then smiled. Not the friendly expression humans used. For greeting, but the predator's smile her species wore when the hunt was about to end. Emperor Valdris, I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, and I speak for humanity. 6 months ago you made a mistake. You assumed we were prey. Today you're about to learn what we really are. She gestured to her tactical officer who began the activation sequence they had prepared for this moment. Throughout human space, the Void Web came online. The massive structures that had seemed like simple space stations revealed their true purpose. They were gravitational anchors, each one connected to others through folds in space-time itself. What the Zephyrians had thought was empty space became a web of controlled gravity wells, wormholes, and dimensional rifts. Emperor Valdris watched in growing horror as his fleet, 10,000 ships in perfect formation, suddenly found themselves scattered across light years of space. Each group isolated from the others, surrounded by human forces that had appeared from seemingly nowhere. Impossible, he breathed. You cannot manipulate space itself. Emperor, Chen replied, her voice carrying the weight of a species that had learned to reshape reality. You really should have done better research. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. We change the environment to suit us. We've been doing it since we learned to use fire. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration. The Grand Armada, spread across dozens of carefully prepared kill zones, faced human forces that fought with the fury of a species defending its young, and the precision of beings who had spent 6 months planning every move. Ships that had conquered. Star systems found themselves outmaneuvered by human craft that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Weapons that had shattered planets met shields that turned their energy into fuel for counterattacks. Soldiers who had never known defeat faced humans who fought with the desperation of a cornered predator and the coordination of a hive mind. In the command center, Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Each enemy ship destroyed, each position overrun, each impossible human victory proved the same point. Humanity was no longer bound by the limitations that had defined them. Status report, she called out. 86% of their fleet neutralized, Morrison reported. The remainder are requesting terms of surrender. Chen considered this for a moment, then opened a channel to the surviving Zephyrian ships. This is Admiral Chen to all Zephyrian forces. You came here to harvest a world of primitives. Instead, you found something you weren't prepared for, a species that refuses to be anyone's prey. Emperor Valdris, you have 2 choices. Leave now and never return to human space. Or we finish what you started. The response came quickly. Admiral, I request terms of ceasefire. Chen's smile returned, cold and satisfied. The terms are simple, Your Majesty. Go home. Tell your empire what you found here. And make sure they understand that humanity is no longer asking to be left alone. We're telling you to stay away. 1 year after the first Zephyrian ship had appeared over Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first deep space fortress, watching as construction crews put the finishing touches on mankind's newest achievement. The Starforge stretched for hundreds of kilometers, a factory complex capable of building entire fleets in a matter of weeks. But that wasn't what made her smile. What brought joy to her heart was the sight of ships bearing the flags of 17 different species. Former subjects of the Zephyrian Empire who had thrown off their chains when word spread that the Eternal Empire could be defeated. Admiral, her aide approached with a datapad. We've received formal requests for alliance from 12 more systems. The Andromedan Coalition wants to discuss mutual defense treaties, and... He paused, as if hardly believing what he was about to say. The Galactic Council has invited humanity to take a seat as a founding member of the new Free Worlds Alliance. Chen nodded, but her attention was drawn to a transmission coming in from Earth itself. The familiar presence of the planet filled her mind, warm and proud. "My children," Earth's voice resonated through her thoughts and those of every human in the fleet. "Look how far you have come. From a species that fought over scraps of land to beings who unite galaxies in the cause of freedom." On the main display, tactical reports showed the state of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire, once spanning half of known space, had fractured into dozens of smaller states. Some sought peace with humanity and their allies. Others retreated to distant sectors, licking their wounds and hoping to avoid notice. But the galaxy itself had changed. Where once there had been an endless cycle of conquest and subjugation, now there were alliances, trade agreements, and councils dedicated to peaceful cooperation. The very concept of galactic civilization had been transformed by the emergence of a species that refused to accept that might made right. "Status report from the outer colonies?" Chen asked. "Mars colony reports successful completion of their second star forge," Morrison replied. "Europa Station has begun construction on the new exploration fleet, and," he grinned, "the Jupiter weapon system has been successfully converted to its new purpose." Chen nodded with satisfaction. Jupiter, once humanity's ultimate weapon, had been transformed again, this time into a beacon. The controlled star that had terrified the Zephyrian Empire now served as a lighthouse, guiding ships safely through the dimensional rifts that connected human space to their allies across the galaxy. A new transmission arrived, this one from Emperor Valdris himself. The once proud ruler looked older, humbled by defeat and the collapse of his empire. "Admiral Chen," his image flickered on screen. I have a request, a proposition." Chen raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening, Your Majesty." "The Outer Rim territories are in chaos. Pirates, warlords, species that learn nothing but conquest from their time under our rule. They prey on the innocent, just as we once did. He paused, pride warring with necessity. "I request humanity's assistance in bringing order to the frontier." It was, Chen realized, the final acknowledgement. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive prey was now being asked to police the galaxy. "I'll discuss it with the Council," she replied diplomatically. "But you should know, Your Majesty, if humanity accepts this responsibility, we'll do it our way. No conquest, no subjugation. We protect people, not empires." Valdris nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand that there is a difference." After the transmission ended, Chen returned her attention to the view outside. In the distance, she could see Earth's pale blue dot, the world that had shaped humanity's destiny without them even knowing it, the world that had prepared them for this moment, across millions of years of evolution. "Earth," she said softly, knowing the planet would hear her across any distance. "What happens now?" The response came warm with maternal pride. "Now, my children, you do what you have always done. You grow, you learn, you protect those who cannot protect themselves. You show the galaxy that there is another way to live among the stars." Chen smiled, feeling the truth of those words resonate through her bones. Humanity had spent their entire history preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every war had taught them strategy, every peace had taught them cooperation, every dream of the stars had prepared them to be what the galaxy needed. Not conquerors, but guardians. Not an empire, but a family extending their protection to anyone who needed it. As she watched, more ships arrived at the Starforge. Vessels from species that had lived in fear for generations, now coming to humanity. For protection, for alliance, for hope. The age of predators was ending. The age of guardians had begun. And in the deep void between galaxies, other ancient intelligences took notice of the small blue world that had changed everything and began to smile.